Hey y'all, welcome back. It's been a hot minute. There's been a lot going on in my life personally. Today I'm doing a reading on James Charles. It's interesting. Several weeks ago, I should say, back in January, when I was taking a look at people I wanted to do, YouTubers that I wanted to read for. James Charles popped up because he has his Saturn return coming up in several years. But when I got to researching what he had coming up for his Saturn return, I saw that it was a very easygoing Saturn return, right? I believe that he had his Saturn in Taurus, which it was about becoming more comfortable in your environment, learning to enjoy the good life, which, let's all be honest, whether you like him or not, we already know that he's very comfortable in the luxurious lifestyle, and that's what his Saturn return would have been like. But keep in mind that when I do that kind of research, it's for a broad group of people who have their Saturn in Taurus. It's not for individuals. So what I want to do today is look at specifically what's going on with James Charles right now. There's some interesting stuff going on. I can feel like energy-wise, there's some stuff underlying that I want to explore. So what's going on with him right now? What's going to happen if he doesn't change, right? And then what can he do to live the best life possible, the very best version of himself? So I'm going to kick off with the Lenormand for now. I'm going to do a portrait spread with the 7th Sphere Lenormand from labyrinthos.co. I will link that website and the cards in the description down below. Let's get started. I'm going to do some shuffling for a minute, and let's get an idea on what is going on at the moment. I'm going to use a portrait spread for this. That is 9 cards, a 3x3 box. And I shuffle until Spirit tells me to stop. If I cut, that's because I was shuffling until Spirit told me to stop, and because, well, it takes a while sometimes. Okay. I am getting a message from Spirit that it is time to lay out these cards. So I'm going to start with the top row first. Here we go. Spirit, that is a red lily. So the 7th Sphere Lenormand has 1 lily card. And typically the white lily stands for establishment, old age, that kind of thing. But in this context, I asked about the red because that symbolizes, in a lot of Lenormand decks, sex and sexuality, right? So that's about sex, and it lines up with the man. The man is facing the sex card. That's pretty plain, right? That's the top row. Let's continue to take a look. And I'm sorry if you've got shadows. I've got the light playing in the room. I hope that it's decently clear enough. Okay, so that's his central theme. That is James Charles' central theme is the bear. That is dominance, right? And as a celebrity, he has a tremendous amount of dominance right now. On the other hand, the bear can also symbolize bossiness. That can be an annoying thing, but not necessarily a harmful thing. In this case, it can also point to strong-arming someone, right? That is where this card can go negative, right? A lot of Lenormand cards aren't necessarily positive or negative. It depends on the context. What we see going on with James Charles right now, this points to strong, like being the strongest person in a match that isn't fair, is what's coming to mind right now. I'm going to lay out the bottom row, okay? Okay, well, like I said, some cards aren't positive or negative. The fox and the snake aren't typically good cards to get. Deceptive wishes, hopes, and dreams. Deception or wishes, hopes, and dreams around love and deception. These are deceptive. Stuff he's chasing that ultimately isn't good to chase, right? I'm going to explore this a little bit more. Okay, so if you can, this lighting, right? It's the sun coming up. I'll try to move it around so that you guys can see a little bit better. So how I read portraits is from the top to the bottom are the what's working on a conscious level. What is he consciously aware of? Here's his present reality. What is going on, though, on an unconscious level is what's going on here. So this is what's moving the situation underneath it all. He has some really high hopes around love, but what's also concerning is around deception, around being two-faced. I need to do a little bit more research. I believe that he was a Gemini. I could be completely wrong. But unfortunately, a Gemini that needs some adjustment, if you will, need like a badly adjusted Gemini will pop up in the snake card. This is about two-facedness. So he wants love, but on the other hand, he feels like he has to, subconsciously, he feels like he has to use deception to get it. And by the way, I should say that all of the readings in this video are allegedly for entertainment purposes only, right? For my learning purposes. He wants big stuff. He has big dreams for what he wants out of life. He does want love, but how he's getting it on a subconscious level is through deception. Unfortunately, that's really played out hardcore on this. A lot of this reading has really been spurred by what Aphrodite talked about in a relatively recent Twitch stream. I'll link his Twitch stream in the description down below. You really should check him out. So here's what's going on in his present daily reality. I mentioned earlier that this is his dominance. I did a little bit of background research into him. I forgot that he was the first male model for CoverGirl. That was years ago when he was still, a decently youngish teenager. So he's been a dominant figure in the makeup community for a long, long time. And on a surface level, that's what that points to. But when we have the deception card in a diagonal alignment, this is scary. I just now realized. I was just looking at these guys. Sexual deceptive dominance is literally what that diagonal is talking about. That's influences. What's moving in the past, right? What were some influences that were in the past was dominant sexual deception. That's unhappy stuff. That is genuinely unhappy stuff. With the fox, that's about thinking about yourself first. If you want to read the fox positively, you could say that it's about self-care, but in this case, this is really about selfishness, especially when you see this in context with the snake and the bear. This is about me first, and it's opening him up to some genuine harm. This is revolutionary. This has revolutionized the way he thinks about love. Unfortunately, this is sex and love. He's been revolutionized. Well, this is his future, right? He may have some good stuff coming up his future. I'm getting ahead of myself, right? Because we're reading horizontally for right now. But in the future, it's possible that he may have some good stuff if he chooses to change. That's the big thing here. He has to choose to change. So on a conscious level, what is he dealing with? Moon For some reason, secrecy pops up around this card. A lot of the time, this is about emotionality, your intuition, the things, the abstract that you can't quite put a finger on, but you're very aware of, right? This is something hidden about a sexual male partner of his. Subconsciously, I could be wrong, okay? Consciously, I don't know that we have all the information yet. I still suspect, I could be wrong, I still suspect that there are some secrets about some other men that he's had sex with in the past, right? That might be a concern of his, right? That's where he is on a conscious level, right? This is his present reality. This may be what's hanging out in his head, right? People haven't figured this out yet, is what came to mind. So this is his future. I talked about his future. There is the potential for him to unlock, to reach a stage where he genuinely changes. That is possibly in his future. Let's take a look at what he has in his past. I have deception, I have thinking of himself first, and emotional, right? This isn't a rational behavior. This is entirely based on, I feel like it. I feel like deceiving for my selfish gains because I get nice things out of it. If you want to look at it like this, that's not a traditional way to read it that I know of, but you can, right? I deceive because it's what I want. Sex with men, right? Very specifically. So let's talk a little bit more about what's going on. This is his present, right? This is what's going on, what he's thinking about at this current, like, I'll have to look back, let me pause for just a second, okay? So sorry about that. I am still a Lenormand learner. I had to look back at my notes at what I've used to teach me about spreads. So yes, this is the day-to-day reality. What I'm getting from labyrinthos.co is that this is his present day-to-day reality. Thinking of himself first, that is dominant. That is basically what has revolutionized his world. This is how I'm going to do it, my way or the highway, is what pops into my head. And then this is the current situation. So his wishes, hopes, and dreams are still very dominant. Here he appears, right? He has high hopes for himself. He has high hopes for his celebrity status, is what I'm getting here. Let me move my mouse. It's what I'm getting is he wants to be a star. He wanted to be a celebrity from an early age, is what I'm getting. In the future, I'm hoping that he will revolutionize himself for the better. The key lands on the house of the clouds, right? If you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that is confusion. That is not seeing your way clearly up ahead. If you've ever attempted to drive during foggy conditions, severe foggy conditions, those are dangerous, right? So I do see some confusion popping up around, okay, yeah, this is revolutionizing, but I can only see one step ahead of me. It's not going to necessarily be clear the way ahead. I'm trying to take a look at the rest of the portrait to see if there's anything else that's popping up. I think it's interesting that snake appears on the house of the snake. This is deception on top of deception. What I was saying earlier about him keeping secrets about some other things, like we haven't figured out, I suspect, everything that's happened in the past. There's still more stuff that's going to pop up about and these folks that he's had sex with. He's got a difficult journey ahead of him. What is the 10th I need to figure out what the 10th. It is relevant to look at some of the houses on these cards. I talked about confusion underneath the revolution, right? Just seeing one step at a time. With the heart, I also see that lands on the house of the scythe. That's not an accident, even though that's what's popping into my head right now, right? I just took a look at the order of the houses, the order of the Lenormand cards. But that is a sudden end. It's about suddenness, suddenly cutting something off. This is going to be a confusing journey that's going to be, at times, very sudden for him. It's going to be revolutionary in the sense that he's going to change over and over because of this. The scythe is associated with transformation. Yes, it's a painful ending sometimes, but sometimes it's really necessary, right? And especially for how this situation has evolved, it's absolutely necessary. Okay, so I want to take a look at another question. Let me pause one more time and I'll be right back. So the next thing I want to look at is what will happen if he never changes, right? We're going to look at what he can do to live his best life in just a second. But what will happen if he never changes? So I'm getting a signal to stop shuffling and to lay out the cards in this specific order. I was talking about the scythe earlier. There it is. What will happen if he never changes? Well, the cards are saying, well, he doesn't have the option to not change. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay. You guys can see that. Okay. So the cards are saying he doesn't have the option to not change. He has to. The stork is all about change. On the other hand, it can also point to cycles of doing the same thing over and over again, sort of. I'm misquoting the saying, but there is a famous saying. A river is never the same when a person crosses it, right? And I absolutely butchered that saying. I know I have. It's far more poetic than I had it. But this is about migration, about moving too. He is going to, what happens if he never changes? Well, he kind of doesn't have that option. Even if he does the same, sort of the same things over and over again, there are going to be little changes in what he finds, in where he finds security, right? The stork lands on the house of the house, which is about what is done in private, what is, where you find comfort, if you will. There are going to be changes, and at the same time, some cycles in what he finds comfort in, what he finds security in. So let's take a look at this from left to right. That's his central theme. With the dog and the rider, this is about, well, the dog is about obedience in a lot of cases. So loyalty is also here, but if the dog is facing away from the rider. So I wonder if this, I could be wrong. This could be about a disloyalty, right? With the dog facing away, a disloyalty towards some certain, this is some fast-moving news here. So not interested, trying to run away possibly from some news related to a sudden end. What if he never changes? Well, he's going to be forced to change, right? There's some news that's going to grab his attention. The rider is headed towards the pointy end of the scythe, which speaks to me of the school of hard knocks, right? The universe's school of hard knocks. If you're going to try to run away from this, if you're not going to point your nose towards the right or right, which would give me the idea that that James would understand that what was ahead was difficult, but he was going to go through this. This indicates to me like, no, I'm going to run away from this as much as possible, right? And let's be honest, sometimes the universe's lessons are hard. They're difficult. But it's better to just face them head on. It's better that the dog faces into the scythe and goes for those transformations, right? The scythe is about a sudden end, but what happens after a sudden end is always a new beginning, right? So what is he going to do? I think it's interesting that the scythe appears alongside the stork. This is an end to cycles, a very fast end to cycles, a sudden end to cycles, and new beginnings, right? A sudden end to cycles that have been around for a long time. The anchor is about permanent situations. So James has been going through a series of cycles for a while. But what happens if he doesn't change? Well, the universe is going to force that upon him. The universe is going to make him change, right? We can go willingly for that change, or we can make the universe spank us, right? In a sense. He's going to be brought to a hard stop here. When I look at the book, this is about an education. Again, the universe is going to be educating him with long-term drama. So the birds are about a messy, loud situation. I've described this before. There are some beautiful, quiet birds out there, but for the most part, we associate birds with being messy, with being loud. Again, very, very beautiful, and I think that makes sense with James, with who he is as a person, right? He enjoys the beautiful stuff, but he's going to be getting an education through drama, and this is going to be long-term drama. This is stuff, excuse me, this is stuff that's going to stick around for a long time. This is interesting stuff. So, loyal to drama, he's going to try to face away from it, right? He's going to try to get away from it, to run away from it. I don't know how successful he's going to be, though. When we look at mirrors, that's what I'm looking at here. We're looking at mirrors. With the dog and the birds, that's a situation that he's forced to obey. He doesn't want to go with this. He's being forced to do this, and I think that makes sense with his reading in the other video, in the other segment, I should say, about him wanting to be the dominant central figure in all of this. This is the universe saying you don't have any control over how the situation is going to go. You've already kicked this into motion. You've kicked the hornet's nest, the universe's hornet's nest, if you will. And now this is the way it's going to go, towards the scythe. When I look at the scythe and the anchor, this is going to be an end to a long-term permanent situation, a really sudden end, I should say. If you look at people operating scythes for real in the fields, in order to cut grass, in order to cut crops, you need to swing that thing at a certain pace, right? Relatively quickly. I want you to have that image in your mind when you think of it cutting through some situations that have hung out for a long time. These dramatic situations that have hung out for a long time. And then, yeah, dude, I was talking about him hiding stuff that he's done in the past with men, sexual stuff that he's done in the past with men. I see secrets, news of secrets. Those aren't going to be kept secret for much longer. I said that I don't remember, I'll have to look back at the segments, but I wasn't sure if those were going to be revealed or not. But this is saying that yes, like, there's going to be someone trumpeting those secrets, in fact, right? What do the old-fashioned news broadcasters do in the old day? Well, they were heralds, right? They would go throughout the streets and shout the news. His secrets are not going to be secrets for much longer. I wonder if there isn't going to be so much drama kicked over, discussion, chatter. This is what this also is about, gossip. I wonder if there isn't going to be so much discussion kicked up over this situation that he's just going to be enough. Enough is enough. This could be a dramatic situation that we haven't come up even, like this might not even be the situation that we're in right now, right? I'm filming this like when while the current controversy is still going on. I don't know that this is talking about a future controversy. And yeah, I'm getting a message from Spirit. Yes, this is about something that's going to come up in the future. It's going to be transformative for him. That's for sure. Let's take a look at a Celtic crossbred for what he can do to live his very best possible life in spite of the situation that he's in right now, in spite of where he's headed in the future, okay? So what I want to do here is a Celtic cross on what James can do to live his very best life, right? In spite of what he's done in the past. We can screw up and then we can make incredible stories out of our screw-ups, right? I'd like to see James do that, so that's what this Celtic Cross is about. I'm using the Wildwood deck, even though it is a tarot deck. This tarot deck's creators do not use reversals in it. Some people who use the Wildwood deck do use reversals. I do not use reversals. I believe that the Wildwood deck is often harsh enough in its messages when it's appropriate that reversals aren't needed, right? Excuse me. This is often a deck that has some real upfront truths that aren't necessarily in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck. So let's get to shuffling for what James can do to live his best life possible in spite of what he's done in the past. Okay. I am getting a signal from Spirit that it is time to stop shuffling and to lay them out. With the sunlight changing, I'm going to take a look at James's central card first. This is what he can do to live the best life possible. Be aware that he has exploited. Be aware that he has exploited. The Six of Stones is the analog card to the Six of Pentacles, right? This is about earth energy. James Charles has exploited, quite literally, other people's bodies, is what this card is saying. What can he do to live his best life possible? He can understand that he has exploited for his personal gain. We can see in the image that there were several beehives. There were 6 beehives. Those have all been destroyed. There aren't any bees or honey anymore, right? Their gardening tools are broken. There's a fire burning up whatever food they had left. James needs to be aware that he has exploited a situation for his personal gain in order to live his best life possible. Let's take a look at his past. That's his present reality. And this is his future. Interesting. So I'm going to mash them in together so that we can have some space. 20 is about judgment, the great bear. In his past, what can he do to live his best life possible is he can also go into a time of not isolation necessarily, but cut himself off from the internet. Let go of social media, right? We were talking earlier about a dramatic situation. This would be a great time to leave the internet, to take some time to reflect, to meditate on what he's done in the past, right? The bear is indicating to go into a tomb to rest, not to die, but to rest and get ready for what is coming up ahead, right? Judgment is not the end of the major arcana. but it is telling you to get ready for the end. Get ready for a transformation, right? He needs to recognize that he has exploited in his transformation process, and then he can become a place where other people who aren't accepted, who aren't traditional, I should say, who don't fall into what's considered quote unquote, great big quote unquotes, normal, right? The Ten of Stones is analogous to the Ten of Pentacles, which is about having everything you need to be happy and healthy. Here we have a home that is growing as part of a living tree, right? It appears to be summertime, and there's a wide path leading up to this home. In his future, he can become he's looking for home for security, and I talked about that in the second Lenormand reading. He's going to find it if he chooses to recognize that he exploited, if he chooses to go into a place where he can meditate honestly on what he's done in the past. Oh, I love this particular card. The Eight of Cups, or the Eight of Vessels, is about being reborn. So if he lives his best life, if he recognizes that he has exploited for personal gain, if he goes into this meditative state, he will go into into rebirth, right? That'll be what's moving the situation if he chooses to live his best life. With the Knight of Arrows, that's being very, very direct. The Knight of Arrows is about being the sword. There we go, which makes perfect sense. He's a Gemini. This will be pointing to growth. Right now, I'm getting kind of like Page of Swords energy out of him. This will mark a period of up-leveling, right? You can think about it in terms of Page, Knight, King, Queen if you want. I choose often to think of it as experience levels, especially when it comes to the cards in the Lenormand. It's fitting that he's a hawk. He's pictured as a hawk in this particular reading. I absolutely get the sensation that when he sees something, he dives for it, right? He laser focuses on it and he dives for it. If he chooses to recognize that he has exploited in the past, if he chooses rebirth, he will level up into being the Knight of Swords, the Knight of Arrows, knowing what he wants and speeding toward it with the speed of air, right? The speed of Gemini. Let's take a look at his rod. This is his cross. What is his rod? What is his advice? Is to recognize his abundance. Now, earlier I talked about his Saturn return in Taurus, and earlier I had actually crossed him off of my list of YouTubers to read for because I thought that, he's good to go. He already enjoys a life of luxury. But this is about appreciating what he has. It's not just saying, I have this luxury. It's, I genuinely love and appreciate what I have, regardless of how much money I make, right? If he cuts himself off right here, if he goes into a meditative state where he lets go social media, takes a YouTube hiatus even, this is where he could really become this Knight of Arrows. If he wants to bring about home, he's going to have to realize that he loves what he already has in his home. So that's his advice. What are his external situations? Well, in the future, if he chooses to live his best life, he's going to hit a creative streak, if you will. This is saying that his external situation is going to bring about a union between himself and, his creative impulses, what he really wants to do. I think it's interesting that we're getting some stone energy right here. This is about we talked about Taurus. Saturn in Taurus it's also an earthy sign. That makes sense. I wonder if this isn't going to come about, right? If he chooses to revolutionize himself and become a better person, recognizing all of the stuff that he's done in the past, he could become, like this really could be a Saturn return worth talking about and not just something to say, oh, he's already got that, right? So those are his external situations, hopes and fears with the Archer and speed. Once again, I think it's interesting that we have quite a bit of air energy here. His hopes and his fears are about going for what he really, really wants. And I think it's interesting. We had talked about him having some really dominant wishes, hopes, and dreams in that first Lenormand spread. I wonder what he's hopeful and fearful about. Right? I see him speeding towards a big something here. This is a major arcana card. And this is the only other one in here. I wonder if he doesn't conceive of something amazing while he's in hibernation, so to speak. And this is where the Chariot, this is analogous to the Chariot. This is where he really, really wants comes into play. Possibly, right? He meditates on it a bit before he acts, if he chooses to live his best life. Last and not least, what is his outcome? Oh my God. A wedding? Is his outcome a wedding? I think, oh my God, this is like that's what pops into my head. Like, what do you associate after a wedding? Well, go to your brand new gorgeous house, right? And then celebrate it with your abundance. It's possible that he'll marry as part of his Saturn return. Again, if he chooses to live his best possible life, he can absolutely have a happily ever after. I can't tell you how many times I've said if he chooses his best life, he absolutely has to make these choices, right? These are not guaranteed. This is if he chooses to do the hard work of rising up to the call of judgment. This is the judgment card traditionally. In the Wildwood, it's pretty much the same thing. I see the Little Dipper, the Big Dipper, one of those things in the artwork that stands out for me for some reason. I'll think of it in just a bit. But if he chooses to do the hard work, he can get he can get a happily ever after, seriously, if he chooses to make some hard choices. And with his earthy energy, that's absolutely possible. A stereotype around earthy element folks, is that they are stubborn, right? And in some cases, you need the stubborn people in your society to say, no, we are going to do these things in justice's name, right? MLK, I haven't looked at his chart, right? But he gives me earthy vibes in the sense that when he sat down on a principle, he believed that, right? And that's kind of the energy that I'm getting, that James can become that kind of earthy person where he sits down on a principle and does not move from it. But first he needs to do hard work. Folks, that is a variety of Lenormand and Tarot readings on James Charles and what his situation is right now, what he can do to improve it, to live his best life possible. Thank you for being patient with this beginner. I am still learning both Tarot and Lenormand, and I'm using this channel and these videos as a way for me to get comfortable with reading off the cuff, right? I've read for family members and friends, but reading for an audience, reading for strangers is completely different. And I think it's good for me to get practice that way. So I hope you have a great day. Please take care of yourselves, stay healthy, all this kind of good stuff. Have a good one, okay?